They told you movement was power, that to change your life you must act, push, declare, manifest with momentum. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if the gateway to the quantum field isn't speed, but stillness? A stillness so deep it silences not only your thoughts, but the very identity you've constructed from them. You were taught to chase alignment. But what if alignment is what happens when you stop chasing? There is a reason nothing seems to shift, no matter how much you try. A reason your affirmations echo without landing, your rituals feel empty, and your reality stays in loop. It's not because you're doing it wrong, it's because you're doing it from the wrong frequency. The quantum field doesn't respond to effort. It responds to coherence. And coherence doesn't emerge from action. It emerges from stillness. But not just physical stillness, energetic stillness. The forbidden kind. The kind that dissolves the false self. The kind that breaks the spell of the identity trying to fix everything. This kind of stillness is dangerous, not because it harms, but because it reveals. It reveals that what you've been trying to attract was never outside you, that the version of you who already has it is waiting in the silence you keep avoiding. Because silence isn't absence, it's access. Stillness is the point where the external projection collapses, and the observer becomes the emitter. And when you become the emitter, you no longer chase frequency, you radiate it. You don't attract timelines. You dissolve the ones that no longer match. This isn't a meditation technique. This isn't about mindfulness. This is about returning to the original pulse of your soul, the signal that existed before your mind learned fear, before your body absorbed survival. That pulse still lives in you. It's not loud. It doesn't demand. It waits for you to remember how to stop. In this video, you'll discover why all your effort is blocking the very thing you're calling in, how the quantum field mirrors your stillness more than your actions, and the lost practice that lets your energy speak to the field without a single word. This isn't about surrender as a concept. It's about vibrational stillness as a path that the mind fears because it can't control it, but the soul knows because it remembers. And when you finally stop, completely, you don't lose control. You reclaim your field, and the field listens. There was a period in my life when I did everything. Every ritual, every affirmation, every visualization technique you can imagine. I woke up early, journaled with intention, burned sage, aligned crystals by moon cycles. And for a while, it felt like I was on the path. But something strange kept happening. The more I tried to manifest, the more disconnected I felt. Not just from results, but from myself. I'd sit in silence and feel everything except peace. Instead of clarity, I'd feel a quiet panic. A vibration beneath the surface, like I was trying to hold together something that didn't want to stay. One morning, I couldn't pretend anymore. I stopped. I didn't sit to meditate. I didn't try to ground. I just sat. And for the first time, I didn't resist the silence. I didn't label it. I didn't fight the discomfort. I let the tension be there. No healing agenda. No outcome chasing. And something shifted. It was so subtle, it almost went unnoticed. Like a soft breath exhaled by something older than time. That moment didn't give me answers. It took them. It peeled away everything I thought I needed to be, to deserve peace. And in its place, a still presence began to expand inside me. Not from thinking, not from effort, but from stopping. That's when I realized, most of us don't fear stillness. We fear what stillness will show us about what we've been pretending to be. Because the silence doesn't lie. It reflects. And when you finally stop performing your healing, the healing begins. I'm sharing this because I know that right now, someone watching this feels the same weight I used to carry. That fatigue of being spiritually exhausted from trying too hard to evolve. That subtle shame of wondering why the techniques don't work for you. It's not because something's wrong with you. It's because you were never meant to fight your way into alignment. You were meant to remember your stillness. And maybe, just maybe, this is your moment. This video isn't here to give you more things to do. It's a space for you to pause, to stop pushing, to breathe in the truth that your soul has been whispering all along. You are already inside the field. You just forgot how to feel it. And if this message is reaching you now, it's not a coincidence. It's a call to stop performing and start listening. Because what's waiting in the stillness is you. If that resonated with something you can't quite explain, but deeply feel, then this journey is for you. Here at Paths of Light, every video is a portal back to what you already are, a radiant field of coherence just beneath the noise. So if this stirred something inside you, let your presence be felt. Leave a like, and subscribe if you haven't yet. This space isn't here to fix you. It's here to remind you that you were never broken. The most powerful manifestation technique is the only one you never learned to use, to stop. But not the kind of stopping that comes with giving up, the kind that comes with delivery. What happens when you stop looking for signs and start becoming the sign? This is the point where everything changes, because you leave the game of trying and enters the frequency of remembrance. But that doesn't happen while you're trying to reach it. It happens when you start listening. And to listen, you need to stop explaining yourself to the field. Have you ever noticed that even your spiritual practice has become a performance? Even meditation comes with expectation. Breathing comes with anxiety disguised as intention. Silence comes full of internal noise, as if you need to justify why you're standing still. But the field does not respond to the justification. It responds to real vibration, and the real vibe only appears when you stop hiding what you're feeling. This is why the stop technique is feared, because it reveals. It brings you face to face with everything you were trying to solve through doing. But here's the paradox. You do not demonstrate on merit. You collapse reality into coherence, and coherence is not achieved with effort. It emerges when mind, body, and field are saying the same thing, even if that thing is silence. This is where you start to break out of the noise. You begin to realize how trapped you were in a spiritual simulation, believing that it needed to do more to connect when all the field wanted was for you to stop moving away. Yes, move away. Because every time you try to get there, you vibrate, "I'm not here." And the field, like a quantum mirror, can only give you more of what you are already emitting. If you vibrate absence, even in search of presence, what returns is empty, not because the universe is testing you, but because he is responding. That's why stopping is so revolutionary. It is an act of vibrational sovereignty. It is declaring, I do not need to conquer what is already mine. And when this vibration sets in, something subtle happens. Coincidences begin to line up. The answers come without you asking. And time, that same time that seemed to be running against you, begins to conspire in your favor, not because of what you're doing, but because of what you failed to resist. The field doesn't change because you ask it to. It changes because you stop simulating. But there is something even deeper here, something few have the courage to acknowledge. When you stop, you realize that most of your life was spent running away from yourself. And that is the true beginning of liberation. This is where everything you thought you needed starts to dissolve. Because the absence of noise reveals what has always been behind the veil. You were already the field. You were just playing a character who had forgotten about it. And if that character is starting to fall apart now, then you are ready to go through the portal that the next part will open. The forgotten insight of the ancients, and the wisdom that was hidden about the power of pause, not as an end, but as a vibrational key. Before there was language, before there were rituals, books, or religions, there was silence. And it is in silence that the ancients said that the field reveals itself. The stillness was not the absence of movement. It was absolute presence. Early initiates into the Egyptian mystery schools were taken for weeks into underground chambers. No light, no sound, no distractions, so that the noise within could finally cease. There, they said, the countryside spoke, but not with words, with vibration. In Taoism, Lao Tzu wrote, "The Tao never does, but through it all, things are done." A sentence that seems paradoxical until you understand it. It is in not doing that doing happens through resonance. The void is fertile. In Vedanta, one of the oldest lines of Indian philosophy, the practice of mountain, the vow of silence, was not merely abstinence from speech. It was the direct invocation of the field. The practitioner not only shut himself up with his mouth, but with his mind. And in the silence of the mind, the self emerged. In Kabbalah, there is talk of Ein Sof, the point from which everything comes, but which cannot be described. For Kabbalists, this point can only be touched in altered states of perception, brought about not by words, but by cessation. The absence of noise is where the original light manifests itself. Tibetan lamas call this the natural state of mind. Dzogchen teaches that every attempt to reach the field is, by definition, a distraction. Only when you stop, radically and deeply, does the field show itself as it always was. Pure mirror, no distortions. Carl Jung, in a more recent era, said, "He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens." But what few realize is that this looking within requires completely stopping interpreting signals as demands, because every desire to control the experience takes you away from the experience. And the shamans of South America said something similar. The spirit of the forest does not appear to those who run. The sacred vision, for them, only manifests itself when the body comes into tune with non-doing. And the field, which has always been present, responds like a vibration echoing back the silence of your being. That's why this technique was silenced, because it disables the control systems. It takes power from the external and gives it back to the internal. A being that accesses the field through stillness cannot be manipulated. He does not need mediators, dogmas, or promises. He became one with the field. And this state of pure, effortless resonance is the origin of all true quantum manifestation. It's not about thinking positive. It's about stopping the noise that blocks the positive from emerging on its own. And this wisdom has been protected for millennia, hidden not out of malice, but out of caution. Because the power of stopping is so transformative that it can destabilize everything that is based on effort. And maybe now you're starting to feel it. Not as a theory, but like a presence that pulsates behind your mind, in the space between thoughts. But the field awaits you. There's something strange that happens when you get too close to silence. It's not peace, not right away. It's discomfort. It's like your body is trying to pull you back into the noise, as if the field was in front of you, about to reveal itself. And something inside you recoiled. But why? Why does silence, what so many traditions have called a portal, an access, God, provoke so much resistance? Maybe because silence doesn't just reveal the field. He reveals everything, including what you spent your life trying to hide. There comes a time in the practice of stillness when the mind no longer knows what to do. And without knowing it, She panics, because that's the point where you stop identifying with the thoughts, and you start to feel who you are, without them. No labels, no narratives, no explanations. And it's scary, because there's no character there, just essence. This is where many stop. I was on the run. I was at the rehearsal. Because they don't know what to do with what they found in the void. But what if this emptiness is not an end? What if it's the threshold of something most people never touch? Something that only those who remain discover. There are hidden records that certain masters, when they remained in stillness long enough, began to see the world differently. Literally. The colors changed, sounds became frequencies, and even time lost consistency. Ancient accounts tell of initiates who could predict events, access information from other timelines, or simply sense when something was about to happen. But these skills did not come from effort. They came from delivery, from the total dissolution of the ego in the silent field of existence. And here an uncomfortable question arises. Why was this technique, so simple, banned? Why is it not spoken about openly in modern traditions? Why does the world teach us to act, do, conquer, but never to stop? Is silence dangerous? Or is it too liberating for the systems that feed off our constant effort? What if everything you've ever sought was on the other side of your resistance to simply being present? No expectations, no mantras, no techniques, just present. The field does not require performance. It demands coherence. And coherence only arises when the noise ceases. Maybe that's why the universe doesn't seem to respond to your most intense requests, because they come loaded with anxiety, effort, resistance. But what if you didn't have to ask? What if all you had to do was tune in? What if the most forbidden practice wasn't a complex secret technique, but the courage to do absolutely nothing? There is only one way to find out what is on the other side of silence: to enter and remain. But before that, you need to recognize noise isn't just around you. He's in. And maybe it's not even yours. Remember the beginning? When do we talk about that almost uncontrollable impulse to always be doing something? To fill time with actions, thoughts, searches? This impulse is like a vibrational armor, a layer that for a long time seemed to protect you, but that, in reality, only kept you away from what really matters. Because the real danger was never the void. It was the noise you've learned to call normal. But something happens when you start practicing stillness. At first, it seems unbearable, as if you were going against centuries of conditioning. But little by little, something changes. You stop trying to control your body, then stop trying to control the mind. And then, something extraordinary starts to happen. You stop trying to control life. And at that moment, life begins to flow. Not like a sudden miracle, but as a field that, for the first time, can truly listen to you. Because now, you're not just repeating phrases. You are vibrating a truth that the field recognizes. This is the first benefit of stillness: reconnecting with your original frequency. Your energy comes back into alignment with who you are, not who you've learned to be. And that changes everything. You start to notice signs where you previously saw coincidences. It starts to attract encounters that seem scripted. You begin to feel a sense of tranquility that doesn't depend on anything at all. It's not euphoric happiness. It is stable peace. It's a quiet confidence that the field is with you, even when you don't see immediate results. And the most curious thing? Your mind, which previously needed explanations for everything, begins to accept the mystery. Because now she feels safe not in control, but in vibrational coherence. You stop living on alert. Your nervous system slows down. Anxiety decreases. Sleep deepens, and thoughts stop being enemies. They keep appearing, but they no longer command. You observe, allows, and return to the center. This practice, although simple, begins to open portals, internal portals, forgotten memories. Sensations that were trapped in the body begin to emerge, but instead of dominating you, they dissolve. No drama, effortless. They just leave, because silence heals what noise only hid. And here is the most powerful point of this practice. You start to remember, not of events, but of its essence, from your place in the field, of your mission, not as a task, but as a state of being. You begin to recognize within yourself a presence that has always been there, but which could only emerge when everything else fell silent. And that is why silence is forbidden, because it reveals. And when you really see yourself, without noise, without masks, without performance, you can no longer be manipulated. You can no longer be distracted. You can no longer be controlled by fears that were never yours. You vibrate, and the field responds. And in that moment, you understand that the most powerful technique for accessing quantum, it is not a mystical secret hidden in ancient scriptures. It's something that has always been accessible. It has always been available. But few have the courage to stay long enough to get past the initial discomfort and touch the reality that is beyond the mind. There is a moment in which the silence becomes so dense that it seems to have weight, as if you were sitting inside time itself. No rush, no destination, just being. It is in this space that the field begins to speak. But he doesn't use words. It uses pulsars, sensations, subtle movements in your perception. It is in this dense and living silence that you feel what the ancients called cosmic coherence. Everything feels right, even if it doesn't make sense. And the most curious thing? You stop wanting to understand, because now, understanding gives way to presence. This is where the practice of stillness becomes dangerous, not because of what it causes, but because of what it disables. It disables the programming, the need for validation, the search for answers outside. It disables the character. And then you feel the emptiness, but not as absence, as origin. The void as the place from which everything is born, including you. This is where many back off, because the ego cannot stand to disappear. He needs a role, a function, a narrative. But the field does not respond to the ego. It responds to pure frequency. And this frequency only emerges when everything that is not you falls silent. This is true liberation. And it is also the reason why this technique is considered forbidden, because it doesn't serve the system. It doesn't feed the character. It doesn't put you into spiritual performance. It dissolves you. And it is only in dissolution that the quantum responds fully, not with wishes fulfilled, but with realities consistent with its essence, not with immediate manifestations, but with an invisible order that begins to operate in all areas of your life. Effortless, no control, no noise. But be careful. There is a point of practice that almost no one talks about. A point where the field stops responding as you expected, where the silence deepens so much that it feels like you've disappeared. And maybe it really has disappeared, but not as an end. As a crossing, a journey that only begins when you let go of even the idea of accessing the field and enters a state where there is no longer any separation between the observer and the observed. You do not access the quantum. You become him, and at that moment, reality changes, but not with explosions, with precision, with synchrony, with reverence, because the field now is no longer trying to prove anything to you. He's just acknowledging you. You've made it this far. And you may not even realize how much this has already changed your frequency. Not because you learned something new, but because it was silent enough to feel something that was always there. Stillness is not a path to the countryside. She is the field. The portal is not out. It's in the pause between one thought and another, in the space between inhalation and exhalation, in that moment before answering, where everything is still possible. If you felt this silent expansion during the video, know this is the field listening to you. The field does not need rituals. He needs coherence. And coherence is born when you stop performing presence and start embodying silence. This is the secret that the ancients kept. Not as a technique, but as a posture. Not as a method, but as a reminder. Because the field, the real field, does not respond to what you want. Respond to what you are being. And now that you have experienced this truth even for a moment, there is a subtle choice before you. Back to the noise. Or continue walking in silence, because silence is not absence. It is presence in its purest form. It is in silence that answers arise, without being sought. It is in silence that reality bends, not to your will, but to your most authentic vibration. You don't need to repeat this video for it to work. You just need to repeat the internal space he opened. That pause. This listening. That sacred moment when you remember, you are not trying to access the field. You are the field. You are not looking to connect. You are the connection. And if this video touched something deep within you, if this memory brought a relief that does not come from the mind, then this channel is your place. Paths of Light exists as a subtle reminder that you were never apart from, just distracted. If you want to continue on this journey of reconnecting with who you already are, feel at home here. And before you go, choose with your heart the next video that appears on the screen. He's not there by chance. He was attracted to its frequency, and maybe be exactly the next whisper your soul is ready to hear. Remember, you are a being of light. Even when you forget about it, the field never forgets.